All right, welcome back, everybody. Live at Drew's house, another edition. Hope everybody is doing well as we fly through August. Where's the summer going? Man, this one's going to go by quickly. I've decided everything's going to go by quickly until we get back to normal. It's going to be like feel long, but then you're going to look at the calendar and be like, what happened during that time frame? That's my little spiel for the day. Okay, back to our guest. Jake Messier is here. Jake joined us months ago. He's a return guest. I can't remember what month it was, actually. Jake, maybe you do, but good to see you again, my man.
Good to see you. I think it was March or April. It was a little while ago, but yeah, it's good to see you too.
All right, so herd strategy, and that's like a little bit of a bit different backdrop today. I think last time we talked to you from the office, but last time we were talking to you because if you remember, we had all these schools around here that were getting rid of the Native American nicknames, and that process continues on. Seemingly every week, I at least hear another pitch to get rid of it or another fight going on in some community. Let's update us. How has this experience been so far for you guys? And remind people what you did because you were helping schools pay for a lot of this.
Sure. So last year, everything sort of mixed together at this point. We're, months drag into years anyway. Last year, we had made a determination that we were going to not make financial barriers a reason why high schools in Massachusetts didn't change their mascot. It's an expensive process, even if you don't bring in the design and the branding part of it. When you're talking about redoing gym floors and redoing uniforms, and even though those things happen every few years, to do it all at one time when you rebrand your school, that's pretty significant. So we wanted to take out the barrier of the finances of the branding process. So we went out there and we put an offer out there, and 5 schools took us up on it. So far, we have rebranded Athol High School, Neshoba High School, North Brookfield High School, and we are currently pretty far down the path with Algonquin High School, and Pittsfield, Taconic High School out in the western part of the state as well. So I think the last time we had talked, Athol was finished. They're now the Bears. They were the Red Raiders, and now they're the Bears. Neshoba is now the Wolves. North Brookfield is now the Bobcats. And Algonquin has yet to be seen. They actually just closed their sort of public open debate, which, as you can imagine, in these kinds of things, causes a lot of it. It was basically an open question of, if you could name the mascot whatever you wanted it to be, what would it be? And so they got a spreadsheet responses. They got about over 800 responses from the community. And you can imagine ranging from very serious ones to not so serious ones along the way. And so we're diving through that data right now and sort of going through and helping them come up with their new mascot. The show was a little bit different in that they decided that they want their high school art students to actually design the image. So it's a little bit different. So we're actually helping them come up with the name of whatever it's going to be, whether it's the turtles or the apples or whatever it's going to be. And then their art department, their school will actually design the logo, which is different than the other ones, which our creative team actually designed the logos for the other schools.
Wow. All right. There's your update. Very good. So I imagine this has been completely smooth for you. No issues along the way and no critics.
None whatsoever. None. Yeah, I mean, so one of the reasons this all started is that, and I think I talked about this in the last show, was that North Brookfield, which for those of you who, I've worked in Boston for a long time, and I know that basically when you are inside the Boston bubble, anything outside 128 is like, I don't know what that is. And then if you get outside 495, there might as well be dragons out there. I mean, that's a very foreign country. So for those of you who do not know where North Brookfield is, it's where I grew up. North Brookfield is about a half hour west of Worcester. It sort of sits right in between Worcester and Springfield. It's a little tiny town, one of the many Brookfields. And that's where I grew up, and that's where I spent my formative years. And so I grew up as a North Brookfield Indian. And, at the time in the 80s, I never really thought that much about it. And then as I got older, though, I was like, that's not probably the greatest thing. And then over the past several years, I've been like, no, it's really not a great thing. And so when I went back to North Brookfield and made this offer, that was the only school that I made the personal offer to because it was my high school. Everybody else, I just sort of put the offer out into the universe, and then if people found it and came back to us, great. North Brookfield was the one that I went and talked to the superintendent and said, I'd like to do this for the school. The process itself wasn't unlike any other process. The other schools that we did, it was an open discussion, it was an open forum. People gave their suggestions. We distilled it down. We worked with a committee. We don't do these things in a vacuum, and neither do the schools. The school typically has a facilitator, which is either a principal or a superintendent that's running the thing. But these committees are made up by current students, alumni, community members, teachers, sort of every stakeholder in the process is part of these committees. And so that committee and that process went well. We came out the other end, and they had narrowed it down to a couple. They put it back out to a community vote when they got down to 2. And that sort of launched a little bit of a firestorm. I think people were wondering if this was a real thing. And I think when they sort of sent out the questionnaire of what do you want to choose between these two, that touched off a pretty significant firestorm. So the community and the school decided to go with the Bobcats, and there's been several stories now written about the community uproar about going to the Bobcats. I mean, it was pretty rough. And I know that it was probably rough in Athol and the Neshoba region as well. It's just that I think I was more affected by it because that's my hometown. That's where I grew up, and I know all of these people. And I was going on to the Facebook groups and seeing people that I went to high school with and parents of people that I went to high school with that I considered to be fairly close, and the really hurtful and hateful things that they were saying was just, and again, I know that these things were happening in Athol and Neshoba, and I'm sure that they're happening in other parts of everywhere. It just was personal to me because of what was being said and everything online at that particular time.
So yeah, a little bit stunned by it, even though you thought there might be some of it just when all right.
Yeah, there was, and there was people who I considered to be really friends, good friends, even now, not just friends that I was in high school 30 years ago. And, we love people that I go to dinner with a couple times a year, people that I see at functions. And there was a lot of talk of people, well, Jake ruined this town, and, people are taking this way off the deep end. They're ruining the town. And there was a couple comments of, we need to find out where he lives, and doesn't his parents still live in town, and sort of veiled threats like that, which was just so uncalled for in all of this. And it got to the point where, and this is where North Brookfield is actually making a little bit more headlines. They're actually having a special election, or they called for a special election to remove the 2 school committee members, or at least one of the school committee members who voted for this. So it's almost like, well, we didn't get what we wanted, so we're going to remove the people that did it. So the money that we saved the town from doing the branding is being all eaten up by holding, I think, 2 special elections in this whole thing. So it's just, it's sad and it's maddening and all of those things that, the majority of the people that are outraged by this are not the current students, who this really only affects them. These are all people that have either never went to North Brookfield High School, that are either in North Brookfield now, or people that have been out of the high school for 50 years. And does the name of the mascot really affect you that much? And apparently it does. And people were really, really upset by it, and still very upset by it.
Or people that just like to shout. There's that aspect too.
There is the people that just like to shout, and they will just shout into the universe regardless of anybody's listening or not. So,
well, again, Jake Messier joining us. I think, this is kind of one of those topics that is, you can talk about it anywhere. I mean, this show's out of Newburyport, but it is, I mean, we have schools all around here too that some have made the change. Others are certainly, I know I just drove down Route 1 and saw the big Saugus Sachem on the side of the highway. I imagine that cost quite a bit to put up. It's a conversation that all these communities are having. So I think it's you can kind of talk about it generally with you, and you know what it's like and what goes behind these conversations about, starting this debate and then trying to change it. It's a lot that goes into it. On a lighter note, I do want to say Mayor Menino once said, anything west of anything out there in Western Mass, like west of Newton.
West of Newton, yes. And where I currently live, I live in Shutesbury now, which nobody's ever heard. This is probably the first time anybody has ever said Shutesbury on this air, but Shutesbury is the little tiny strip of land between Amherst and the Quabbin. So we're out here in Western Mass, as we like to call it.
There you go. Yes, I have family in Long Meadow. I remember I told them that story, and they thought that was hilarious. But yes, anything Western Mass, like west of Newton, he was too funny. But that's neither here nor there. What has it been to see these schools that, because I've talked to a lot of students who have just been very proud that the change went through. And it feels like they kind of, it's like in high school, you kind of make a movement like that and you speak out and you actually see this big tanker shift. Takes a long time, but when it happens, it's kind of rewarding. You won a good fight. What's it been like to see those students that have, they felt it all paid off?
What we've sort of seen is that these high schools are almost microcosms of the little towns. There is factions within the school that are for it, and there are factions within the school that are against it. And that's not just students, that's staff and everything. It was tough to be on a committee with a staff member who was against the change at all, but they felt that on one of our committees, and they felt it was important to have that voice. Not that it was going to not change, but it was important to have that voice in the discussion to what it was going to become. And so we've talked to kids, and we've talked to, there was this one young woman from Neshoba who was a person of color. And she's not Native American, but the fact that she felt like she was being heard, and that people in what is a predominantly white area, white school, she felt like it didn't have to be something that represented her. It just didn't have to be something that disrespected someone else. And that's where she felt like there was that win. And she felt like, it's not about making somebody else lose. It's about lifting everybody up. And that's really what's on her message. And we're getting a lot of messages from kids like that are now actually proud to be wearing their school sweatshirts, and they're proud to be wearing. And so it's I've heard back from one of the school administrators who's like, yeah, we had to invest a lot of money into all of our new uniforms. We're having a good offset of that budget by all the kids that are supporting and buying all this new gear. And so that's going straight in to help offset all the costs. So it seems like the Athol, that was the first one we finished. Athol is planning on, for this new school year, everything is rolled out as the Bears. So they had pulled down their old mascot at the beginning of last school year, but everything now is all their uniforms, everything has been all rebranded. So I think going into this new school year, you're going to have a different mindset for kids and a feeling like my voice mattered and what I thought mattered, which I think is so important for kids to feel, especially when it comes to big societal issues, like huge, and especially when you're fighting, if I put myself into a mind of a 17-year-old, if I won something like that against a group of adults who I thought was incorrect in their assumptions, then I'd feel good about that. That my voice was strong enough, and that the collective voice was strong enough that it changed something. And I think that's important for people for kids to have hope and change and that kind of thing. So
probably something that propels you and maybe carries you through when you move into adult life too, I would imagine.
I would hope so. I would hope so.
Good high school lesson. It is strange too. Sometimes I know I don't want to focus too much on the negative stuff of this, but it does kind of shock me. Like, I don't know, maybe it's just because I was a Falcon, a Danvers Falcon, and it was a bird, and I don't think there's anything controversial about that, but so I haven't gone through that personally, but I don't think I would ever, sometimes it stuns me, the amount of like pride and just connection and just attachment to these mascots, like, should it be the end of the world? Like, if you're offending somebody, should you really be fighting that hard for this thing that, in the end, is that really it's not gonna rip away all your high school memories,
That's the hill you're gonna die on. That's where there was one mother of one of my closest high school friends, and I in high school, countless, starting in middle school, countless sleepovers and ball games and everything with this woman who I felt like, almost a secondary mom, really. And the vitriol and the hatred that she was spewing on Facebook about this change just really sort of broke my heart. And that she was so this is the topic that you're gonna this is something you graduated from this high school 50 plus years ago. And it's not like you have kids there. It's not like you even have grandkids there. It's literally, it's just a simple, and North Brookfield went the other direction where not only did they, and this is embarrassing to me from as somebody from North Brookfield, not only did they say, we want to keep the mascot of the high school, the Indian, but we want to make that the town mascot. They went full hog the other direction. They said, we want to make it our town mascot. And I'm like, I don't know how I've done my fair share of online Facebook fighting, and I don't know how I've since sort of just given it up. I mean, you're not going to convince anybody that it's just so that different from you. It's just that, and their different mindset. And again, it's, I see the argument that they're making. It's just that they don't see the other side. I can see that, look, generally, except for the case of Athol, all of the other mascots were, in their mind, respectful and showing respect for the Native Americans in this region. Everything, Athol was it was a character. Athol's looked like the Cleveland Indian. It was called the Red Raider, and it was not good. So that one needed to be gone. I can see their point that they're showing respect, and that if the name of the high school is Algonquin, then why shouldn't we have a Native American? And all those arguments, and I get it. However, when you go to the Native Americans in the region and say, is this offensive? And they say yes, there should be literally nothing that comes out of your mouth. Like that should be the end of there shouldn't be a yeah, but, or there shouldn't be anything other than that. That should just be the end of the conversation. And it's not, unfortunately. And when there's just so much of that divide, you just sort of have to tune it out and just be like, well, I'm sorry, but it's wrong. And whether you see it as wrong or not, it's still wrong. And so we have to make this change. And regardless of whether you support it or not, it's still going to be made.
I don't know if you found this in your research on this, but I have found that a big problem with this all is that, like, from community to community, there's not like this. These were based off real people, these logos, but there were different branches of these people, and there were certain different people that were founded. The Winchester Sachem is different than the Saugus Sachem, and there's the histories are different, and it's not just the one logo that is good for everybody.
Right.
You may be able to find a certain branch of people and do the history and say, and somebody might, it seems like for all these stories, you watch the Today Show or something, they always tend to find the person that says, I'm not offended by it.
Right, there's the one guy.
Yeah, but there's a whole lot of people that are under that same category. So that's the problem. I think people don't understand that, how complex that is, just
It is a complex part, and I'm simplifying it down, saying, well, why don't you see things my way? And it's not even my way, and this is our part of the thing that, of the 5 schools that we booked into this program, we've had probably double that, where high school students have reached out to us saying, can you please come to our school and talk to our school committee or talk to our students or whatever? And that's not what we do. I'm not an anthropologist or somebody that can be speaking about why you shouldn't be naming things after a culture or not. I'm not. I'm there once the decision has been made to do what I do, which is branding. I'm not there to tell you why or it's a right thing. I have personal feelings, as to why, and that's why we started this, but I'm not going to go in there and convince anybody to do anything, and that's sort of where we are at the other side. Look, people started spamming the Herd, the Herd Facebook page and that kind of a thing with, nasty messages, and, block them all was my instruction to my social media managers. Block them all. I don't need to see it. I don't need their opinion. I don't. I mean, and that, I had to personally, after the whole North Brookfield thing happened, I lost about 100 friends on Facebook that I just felt like people, and it got so bad that when I put one response, I put one note about it on Facebook, and then somebody cut and paste that into one of the private North Brookfield groups, saying, oh, look, he's, and I was like, so I didn't know who the leak was or whatever. So I'm like, I just can't, unless you're like a really, really strong friend and I can trust you. Like if you were just a high school buddy or whatever, I sort of cut it all out of my life, because I don't know. It's just an ugly, ugly place. My parents are still there, and they were sort of worried
yeah,
walking in the grocery store, and it's just a sad state of affairs that that's where the world is at, where you can't, if you don't like something, you're going to threaten and coerce and call a recall election because you didn't like the results. And that's just sort of, and I'm making a metaphor for much larger issues as well, but like, that's the thing. I mean, it's just that culture, and I don't understand it. So
that will rattle you when people start asking about where you live and where your parents live and all that stuff. Like, anybody can understand that who's breathing out there. Yeah. Would you say it has mostly been keyboard warrior stuff? I mean, have you actually had issues with on the streets, or is it? I mean, there is an element of that. It's so easy to just go on those town Facebook page and just launch and feel like you can say hello to the guy on the street and smile. But
and that's where I was with most of it. I think most of it is that, keyboard warrior, like you said. I think that's most of what it is. We did, when this all sort of blew up, when sort of all these pages blew up, when the Bobcat was launched, we were actually supposed to have dinner with my parents in North Brookfield. We were going to drive out there and have dinner, and we actually chose not to. And I actually asked them to not go out for a couple of days until it sort of all simmered down. And whether that was overreactionary or not, I don't know. But my parents are, 2 retirees, and I shouldn't have to be telling them to not go out in their sleepy little town of 3,000 people because of a really nasty, just litany of comments, hundreds of comments about this whole thing. And so I didn't want them tied, especially because people were asking, do his parents still live in town and that kind of thing. I just didn't want them dragged into it. And unfortunately they were, and I did. And me as their son, I just felt terrible about that, and I apologized profusely. But my dad specifically said, I could not be more proud of you in what you're doing and what the company's doing and what the company's doing for North Brookfield. And, regardless of what anybody else says, he used a little bit more colorful language, but I won't use that on air. But I mean, yeah, he just said, I'm proud of you for what you're doing. So that sort of motivated me to sort of keep on going with what we're doing. So
that's always cool to hear from Dad, right?
Mm-hmm. It is.
It's as I look through this, I don't think it really stops for a while, because you just saw the Cleveland Indians were the latest big pro team. So I mean, it's still happening at the biggest levels of sports.
Although, can I point out that the Washington Football Club has taken like a year and a half. They're still going into this next season as the Washington Football Club, and I can put the note out there that we rebrand teams in like 6 weeks. So if the Washington Football Club needs any help, we can help you out with this. It's taken like a year and a half.
There you go, Jake Messier reaching out to the Washington Football Club. Very nice. So it's good, but I mean, you do still see all this stuff happening. You said you're not an expert on all of it. You wouldn't want to, try to act like one, but I mean, I have had experts on, college professors who have studied everything about this. And I remember I had one on, her name's escaping me at the moment, but I remember her predicting that these things probably will, all the native imagery probably will go away at some point. And she said, I remember saying should go away. And I think she was finding it very tough to make a case for keeping any of it. And that's somebody who's dedicated their life to it. So it's just interesting. I think people are going to be careful when they start screaming about things that they think they know. And, not that we're pretending to know anything, but, when you talk to people who actually do study and meet with these people and go into the culture, you got to listen to those people,
The ways that this has been successful is that the schools that have brought in Native American speakers to talk about the why, the student body has been like, oh, I get it now. And the ones that have been successful, that have launched this have done that. They've brought in the speakers as to tell the student body why.
And even when you find that person that's not offended or that group, whatever it is, there are people that are offended. It doesn't make it better that you're
exactly
5% is not offended or whatever the percentage may be. If some people are offended, you should probably relook at these things, right? That's how I do it.
Exactly.
I'm guessing letting my personal thoughts get into the interview a little bit. I do think what you guys did was such a cool thing over there at Herd Strategy. I don't know, was the rest of your team like, Jake, can we be done at this with some point? We're just, this is getting stressful.
It's funny because whenever we get to the end of one, we're all like, oh, thank God. I mean, they're branding is hard. When you're trying to think of something new, it's hard. It's not easy when you're coming up with something new. But then, when the next one comes along, the team is like, hell yeah. I mean, they're ready to go. They're even when we had 3 going at the same time, that's a lot, on top of, all the other paid client work we have, because this is not all we do.
What is it, by the way? Run us through that. Just jerseys, start there, boom. What else are you going to do?
So in terms of what they have to, the design and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So when they start really digging into everything that has to be replaced, because I think most schools are like, yeah, we need to get uniforms and but then they're like, oh my gosh, everything has this thing on it. And so we typically will leave, their athletic departments can typically do their uniforms and stuff like that. What we will typically do is when they have large scale designs, if they need help with their gym wall, or if they need help, we deliver a full package that has every type of logo that you'll want. And they can make their uniforms, something like that. But when they talk about gym floors or signs or whatever, when they're doing a seal or like so we're helping them out with that too. So there is a lot. I think, one of the first things I do when a school contacts me is, hey, you need to do an audit of where all the places your mascot is, because I don't think you really know. Yeah, of course we have it on sweatshirts and uniforms and the gym wall, but walk around your school and see every place where that thing is and everything that needs to be replaced, and start making a spreadsheet. And then when they started, they're like, oh my God, and that thing keeps on growing. So so we will help out with other aspects of sort of the bigger design things, more of the signage things, but most of the time, they get handed this graphics package and they're just off and running.
Wow.
My team has basically asked for it. All my team has asked for is that we get a collection of all the sweatshirts that we've done. So they want all the sweatshirts, an Athol Bear sweatshirt. So that's the only payment that we're asking for the schools is send us a few sweatshirts.
That's cool. Wear the changes with pride, right?
Exactly.
I like that. That's a good request. 2 final points here. Let's go pro sports before we go. What would be your pitch for what do you want the Washington football team to be? Let's reach right out to Snyder. We'll do it here. Dan Snyder, right?
I haven't even thought about it. It literally could be anything, and I don't mean that the wrong way. It could be anything. I don't. It's just the Washington Football Club is a terrible terrible name, especially for 2 full seasons. I don't have a name. I don't know. Do you have a name?
No.
Excellent. Boy, we're not doing very good. Maybe we should delay the Dan Snyder email until we come up with something.
What about like the I don't know, a lot of monuments in Washington Monuments, right?
I could do it.
Did I steal that from like the Replacements movie or something? Were they
the Washington Monuments?
I don't know. I feel like I might have stole that. Seems to make sense though.
Yeah. The Washington Generals.
Yeah.
Isn't that the name? What's the name of the team that always plays the Harlem Globetrotters?
Oh, I don't know.
I think that's the Washington Generals. It's the team they always play, and I think they've only won 1 game against them in their entire history. I think their 100-year history or something like that. I think they're the Washington Generals. Anyway. I
didn't even know that story. I might look into that story.
Yeah, I think they've only won a handful of games in their entire, because they're the team that they always play on the road, and they always beat them all the time. But I think they beat them like once or twice in their entire history. So anyway.
You're full of fun facts. Last point. It's not really a question for you. It's more of a congratulations. I just wanted to say nice going to your Montreal Canadiens. For those of you who don't know, you're a big Habs fan. And you had quite a run here. Pandemic watching hockey, fun for you, going to the Stanley Cup final and didn't quite get it all done. But as a Bruins fan, to a Habs fan, I would like to say congratulations on a great season.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I know that you're a hockey fan as well. Most true Bruins fans are like, screw those guys. But I know some of my friends that are true hockey fans that happen to be Bruins fans were congratulating me. So I appreciate it. It's tough to be a Habs fan in this city, only because I'm a Red Sox fan and I know how I treat Yankees fans, and it's a very similar mentality. So we don't even go to the Garden anymore.
Is there a Spark Notes version of how you become a Habs fan and a Red Sox fan?
So my entire family, most of my family is from Montreal, and so my grandparents are from there. So it all sort of got brought down here to me, and then I spent a little bit of time working in really upstate Vermont, and there was a bunch of Habs fans around, and I was like, all right, well, cool, this is my family lineage, and I'm going to be a Habs fan, and that's where it sort of started. And I've told my children, I'm like, listen, just because I do this, it's a much easier road to just be a Bruins fan. You're hockey fans, just be Bruins fans while you're here. And my daughter's wearing, at the time, she's wearing her PK Subban jersey to school and getting in fights, and I'm like, oh geez, no, stop. And my son wears his Shea Weber jersey, and I'm like, all right, fine. I guess you're gonna have a life of misery and pain here in New England as a Habs fan. So
oh man, when Montreal and the Bruins started having those kind of back-to-back years of playing each other in the playoffs, when they were one of those years the Bruins won the Stanley Cup. Yep. That PK, I mean, I kept watching him. He was a Bruins killer. He was electric out there. I always wanted to hope maybe the Bruins could land him. He's like my favorite kind of defenseman. But anyway, yeah, that's right. Montreal, fun story from Montreal, real quickly for you. My dad got up there, and it was on like one of those small, buses with other Bruins fans. We're all going to the game, and
so you went to the Bell Center.
Bell Center, yeah.
Oh yeah.
No, what is it?
Was that at the Forum? Was that before the Bell?
No, it's the new building.
Okay, yeah, that's the Bell Center, yeah.
Bell Center, yeah. So we're there, and my dad's like, I'm young, maybe middle school, 8th grade, 9th grade. Mm-hmm. And I walked out of the first, not even like 5 seconds on the ground in Montreal. We're walking into the hotel. The first 2 cars that drive by see me in my Andrew Raycroft jersey at the time. And they all hit the horn and give me the middle finger, both of them. I was like, well, that's a greeting.
It's not usually like that. We like to pride ourselves in being the nice fans.
I was surprised. It was rowdy too, man. I remember my dad was like, listen, just be mature about it. You can handle it, but walk through the concourse with me, because the Bruins jersey is just stirring up so many emotions through there. Like it will be an experience. And I do remember it. It felt like being on stage, and I was the main act at a concert, like just the booing. And one guy had been dangling a bear off the balcony, which of course is just horrible, and started following me around, swinging it. I was like, this is.
Oh my Lord, this is like the worst Montreal Bell Center story ever.
Those years were rowdy, though. If you remember, those years were.
Oh, they were. Yeah, it was crazy at that time.
There was booing of the national anthems at one point.
Yeah, that's not cool at all.
It wasn't a great period.
we go to the Bell Center 3 or 4 times a year, and we don't go to the Garden anymore because I have similar experiences. They don't mess with my wife as much because she wears her pink Habs jersey, and that just really bothers. And she's not like a pink hat type of person, but she wears it because it infuriates the Bruins fans so much that she wears her pink Habs jersey, and they don't screw. But man, I've been like pushed on the stairs up at the third balcony of the, it hasn't been good. So we just don't even go anymore. So I appreciate, yeah.
It's amazing what alcohol can do to some people.
It's true.
Jake Messier, thanks for all the good work with that great campaign you did. And I know it's been a lot of work, but it seems as though you feel pretty confident, as do I. And I think a whole lot of people that it's on the right side of history there. So thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
We'll see you next time, man.
Thank you.